All right, welcome back. Today we'll talk about the exercise inputs and data entry for our exercise planning toolkit. So here, most of the data entry, most of the inputs will be right here in the green tab, exercise inputs and data entry. You really start at the top and we'll work our way to the bottom. So again, we give it some catchy name, best exercise ever or something similar. Like we talked in the last video, the blue is sort of the required, so to speak, and then green is a little bit more optional. So as you look through here, we're trying to give some strategic purpose, some executive summary stuff if you need. And then again, we can use drop downs wherever the little arrows are to select from those. As you work your way down from there, we'll start filling in some of the other details. When does it start? When does it end? Is there a duration if we're going to go overnight and come back in the morning? What's the primary location we're looking at? And you can spell that out. It may be an armory, a school, a gymnasium, an office, park, whatever it is, you'll put that there. That's where folks will show up. In this section, this is the host agency, and so your name, address, jurisdiction, etc. And then as you kind of work through, please take note of the data that's already in there. So for example, the prompts later in the books will start with exercise play is limited to, and so you'll want to use the lowercase, right, and non-punctuation. That will pull it in as an actual sentence. It looks silly here, but it flows in nicely further down. We get down a little bit further and we talk about the document protective markings. And so these, you can put in whatever is appropriate there and those will show up. Mission focus, you can select again from drop downs and those match the FEMA typed exercise mission focus areas. We can list in what might be useful leading up to the exercise as far as training is concerned, ICS courses or whatnot. And then down here we start writing our objectives. We recommend 3, but this will hold, as you can see, up to 6. For each objective, again, associated drop downs with core capabilities. And we start tying in then what plans we're hoping to test and potentially what integrated preparedness plans, IPP priorities you're looking at. We'll go ahead and choose a threat or hazard that will sort of frame our context here a little bit, give some details, and then as you get to that phase of the exercise, once you've written objectives and whatnot, we'll start onto our scenario. And here you can be as kind of detailed or less as you choose. We'd recommend not writing a War and Peace style novel in here. Some of the high points are probably what you need to get at. You can see maybe a paragraph or 2 at most. We get into some of the green and you can flush out the details a little bit more, right? Additional info, modeling and simulations, weather, and whatnot. We have a tool towards the back about exercise budget to dive into great detail. But you can see here, this gives you a swag as you start to put in some details. We'll give you a ballpark of what you're looking at. Our main point of contact for the exercise, this is probably you if you're filling out the tool. This will be where questions and comments will get directed throughout the document. Now that you've got your exercise sort of framed out and scoped, we can look, and again, the green being largely optional, lists out the various meetings you might include from an HC perspective. You can add dates, times, locations. Again, these are from the drop downs at the very bottom. You can customize that list. And we can put in some outstanding issues for that meeting to tackle that may come from the meeting above. And again, add any notes, do-outs, homework, just a sort of running commentary. We go down a little bit further and we talk about what documents and products we should be kicking out. And you can see here's some sample ones. We can assign them to an agency, a point of contact, put some due dates in there. There's some color changing functionality there that will support your exercise as well. We'd recommend you leave these alone, but you have the option to, again, use the drop downs to change what color and such. The reason we recommend you leave them alone is there is some tie-in down the road to name badges, ID cards, table tents that is fairly standard, and these come from the HC. So again, hopefully you have vests and whatnot that may match. As we go down, we'll talk about our planning team, and this is where again you can talk about preferred methods of communication. We'll start listing out. Again, it gives you a main person, and this is, like I said, probably you. The others you can flush in as you'd like. Again, it starts you with some ideas that you might want to include as planning team. If it's different, you have some day of exercise team, which again, this may be the lead up and this may be the day of. But you can see again, blue being kind of the necessary, the others less so. You can assign who's in what role, what agency, and then again, as we customize our field at the very bottom, you can assign locations for them to show up. As we scoot down a little more here, if you're using a master control cell, again, you can assign various drop downs, locations, assign aligned agencies. These are the ones that you put in at the bottom. Kind of work through there. We'll scoot down just a little more, again, in your planning phase and the invite participant list. We'll put in how you want somebody to get a hold of you. Could be an email, could be that you set up a Google form link or something to let folks know how to RSVP. As we go through, you can, as they RSVP or folks you an invite, again, you can put stuff here. We have the copy paste functionality to grab these, copy them, paste them into an email that you have open to again attach files or whatnot. We'll scoot down from here. Again, reminders, drop downs are customizable at the bottom. And then you can pick and choose to make sure you have all your bases covered with disciplines or roles that are there. This is a little bit feels duplicative here on participating agencies, but after you've had RSVPs back, these are perhaps the high points. So for example, if you have 4 or 5 folks coming from public health, you'll have one point of contact, and you can again select if they're private, public, nonprofit, whatever it is, what role they'll be playing. And there's sort of set 1 and set 2, as well as 3 spots for senior ranking folks or VIPs. As you work through some of this stuff, again, most of it likely can just sort of stay status quo. Communications, you can adjust a little bit if you need. The verbiage, if you need to adjust, you sure can. And then some of this, if there's things, details that are unique to your exercise, feel free to change. So for example, the hospital might need customized, but for most other things, this is all fairly consistent and likely can just stay as put. Again, a reminder, if it's in sentence case, it shows up down the road that way. And so this is all, if you're changing something, generally just leave it kind of however you found it as it were for capitalization and punctuation. Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of our exercise structure. And so as we look down here, you can pick how many modules you might have, and then start customizing it. So for example, module 1, here's the title. You can name it whatever you'd like, select what venue it will be at, add an address if you need to, and then give a few scenario updates and start working through. So for example, our breakout location will be at table 1. The primary group will be dispatch, and then we start working through. So event number 1, at this, the incident notification occurred, and then put some details in. Fill that out to give yourself a bit of a context to what you're doing. And then again, you work down through key issues that you want to identify, what you're trying to get at, kind of again tying back to your objectives. Our key questions then pop up, who generally will be addressing them, and you can work through again the 2 key groups and then a general audience one. This repeats for modules 2 through 5, is kind of the max of what we're looking at in this toolkit. As we scroll down a little more, exercise day of schedules, right? So you can kind of frame out what your exercise should look like. These all translate again then to other schedule locations. You can add personnel that should be at each one if there's some coming in or going out at various things, and what location these will occur at if you have multiple venues. The slide deck items, right? So this then ties into some of your documents you'll see coming up. Again, largely pulls from up above, and then you can go through and add how long you think you'll be on each one of the particular things. So this is 2 minutes, 15 minutes, 7 minutes, as you see. And adjusting this and these blue ones then gives you a sense as you sort of work through to see if you'll actually end on time or if you need to adjust things. The facilitator notes, if there's something unique, let's say with module 1, we could add a note for our facilitator for the day of that will catch their eye in documents down the road to help them kind of move the exercise forward. The measle takes this level and dives in more detail. So again, you can kind of see this flows down from up above, and then you can start getting more specific about, again, the inject itself, some expected outcomes, the learning points, and then again, how long we should be on each one of these. If you want, you can dive in even further to spell out how the messages will be sent. This kind of goes hand in hand with the master scenario events list, and you can put what ways you'd like the messages to be sent and received. So again, customizable drop downs at the bottom. how you'd like that to show up. If there's details for the simulation cell, like a phone number to call from, and then again, any verbiage that you'd like to add to the particular scenario. Similar to above, these likely can kind of stay pretty consistent. You can add a few customized notes here as needed, but this should be fairly standard. If you have actors, again, you can kind of organize them here with actor numbers, names, emails. Again, the idea that we can email them ahead of time, how long we think we'll need them, and where they're going to be showing up. If your exercise has something that requires medical information, you can again build out some stuff here. So for example, here's some generic ones. You can add in demographics and locations. They're a such and such age, male or female, from up above that you knew from who was coming to your actor party. And then again, change up their signs and symptoms and triage tags. From here, this will generate, and we'll see it later, some triage tags and whatnot that might be useful. With any good exercise, we have a series of acronyms, and again, you can keep these as a running list, and anywhere you fill these out, they'll again flow down to the places where they need to show up. With any of these, we try not to add rows on this page because again, it's fairly linked in if-then logic to look for particular spots, and if you add rows or delete rows, we end up having some trouble. If you have extra stuff like this A and Z, just placeholders, simply hit delete, but don't actually remove the row. We'll scoot down briefly through the exercise evaluation guides. As you look at these down here, these are taking some of the stuff from up above. The names and whatnot, as you fill them out above, will flow down here. You can select which mission areas, which objectives, and then the core capabilities, again, are off of a definition list at the bottom. And as you can see, they'll pop up here, and you can select your core capabilities, and it brings the definitions right there. From there, you can put your plan sources in, whether it's training or documents, and then go through your critical tasks and help the evaluators understand what they'll be looking for as they're getting ready to go. Gives you a spot for several evaluators, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and again, these can be at different venues, as you can see, or all in the same place, depending on how you set up your exercise. Generally, it gives you 1 per objective, but again, you can add or subtract that, right? If you only have 3 objectives or 6 evaluators, assign 2 evaluators to 1 objective. The after action notes, we can get the 30,000 foot level here, where we start filling in generally just some high notes and high points, some top 3 up, bottom 3 down for improvement, or we can dive in a little bit deeper to the after action summary, where we'll start into, again, pulling down objectives and core capabilities, assigning ratings, and then again with our AAR notes, we can go in and spell this out a little bit more fully. Is the objective fully or partially met? What were some strengths? What were some improvements? You can list the references, again, if there's plans, policies, whatnot. And if you do the root cause, and we have a tool for root cause that you'll see coming up. Again, for each of your objectives, you can spell some of this stuff out. As we scoot down just a little bit further, you'll see that we are building towards our improvement plan. Again, drop down functionality, taking some of your stuff from up here, assigning it to the POETI elements and your corrective actions. You can list out some stuff here if you need, again, green being largely optional. Down here at the bottom, a thank you note details, and so this really does come from who's going to sign your letters. You can copy and paste from your actors up above or your invite RSVP list. You should be able to grab them, paste them in. You can add any customizable notes here, maybe thank you for lunch, or thank you for letting us borrow the fire truck, or the venue sure worked out great. Put some of that in here, again spelled out in sentence or paragraph form. We'll show you where that goes down the road, but for now, you can see this will help you generate some of those things, and we're back down to the drop-down edit options to customize your fields up above. Again, thanks for joining us, and on our next episode, we'll jump into some of the tools themselves, but we're really through the lion's share of what you need to know to make the tool run. Again, green being optional, utilize the drop-downs, and blue being stuff you should probably consider straight away. Thanks for joining.